Today's video will be another thrift store challenge, and we are headed to Kirkland's to get some much needed spring inspiration on this rainy day. I'm gonna go around Kirkland's, we're gonna get loads of inspiration, and then we are headed over to the thrift store to see what we can come up with for a whole lot less. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. One of the first decor pieces that caught my eye were these decorative candles in these metal containers, and they were $19.99, which isn't that bad, especially because the candle did smell really good. But if you're just going for the aesthetic of a certain decorative candle, I do recommend going to the thrift store first. For example, I found this pencil cup from the Hearth and Hand line for just 50 cents at my local thrift shop. I took an old pillar candle and I cut it down to the appropriate size so that way it would be able to fit nice and snug inside this little pencil cup holder. One little tip, if you are cutting a candle, just make sure that your knife is nice and hot so it just kind of blades right through, and this was the end result. This only cost me 50 cents and I think I have such a similar look on a budget. Whenever I'm going around shopping in stores like Kirkland's or Pottery Barn, I like to pay attention to the florals that they're using. And they used a lot of tulips this time around in Kirkland's for spring. So you guys might remember when I found this basket last year during the springtime. And I recently saw Brenda from Cozyaholic just lay tulips down flat. And I think that this is actually like a really practical floral arrangement. It's not something that you'll have to remove should people sit down. It's just effortless and pretty and perfect for the springtime on a budget. There are certain decor pieces that for me are like dead ringers for a farmhouse aesthetic. So cloches, bird cages, those sorts of pieces for me just remind me so much of that farmhouse decor. But at places like Kirkland's, these can oftentimes be very expensive. So I do like to check the thrift store first. I ended up finding this one at the Goodwill for just $5. It looks brand new, like it's never been used. And I just kind of looked through the imagery on the website to see how they styled it. And they just put some little goodies inside. And I think this looks so pretty. And again, it's also functional. I can put little treats in here for my kids to go and grab. And then for a little bit more styling, like I mentioned in last week's video, if you're not finding a lot of candle holders that you really love, make sure you're checking your holiday and Christmas section, because oftentimes you can find things that just need to be stripped down and you'll have a very beautiful decor piece on a budget. And then adjacent to that, I found a white pitcher. Again, a white pitcher is just traditional farmhouse decor. Filled that again with some more tulips to get that Kirkland's inspired look. And then finally, I found this little soap dispenser for just $1.99. It had some scuff marks on it, so I just took a magic eraser to it and they just kind of buffed right off. Filled it with my favorite hand soap, and this whole vignette cost less than $20, but should I have gone to a store like Kirkland's, would have been at least $200. While we're still in the kitchen, another decor category I really loved from Kirkland's was their wooden bowls, but they were also quite expensive. So when I came across this one at the thrift store, I thought this was going to be perfect for like a charcuterie situation for Easter. So I'm very happy with this purchase. Whenever I go to Kirkland's, I know that I'm going to get a lot of really great inspiration for wreaths, because there are essentially so many options to choose from. They're oftentimes a little bit more pricey than I would generally like to spend for a temporary piece of decor. So being able to go there in person really gives you the idea of the scale of how big something is, what the flowers really feel like, and so you can get a similar look on a budget. So you guys might remember this wreath from the fall time. I actually got it for free at a garage sale, so I'm just going to strip it down to basically it's just bare bones. And I also had DIY'd this mixed greenery wreath that you guys might have seen quite a while ago. It was just a garland that I turned into a wreath, so I'm going to remove that little embellishment there, and I'm just going to basically combine these two wreaths together. I'm just adjusting all of the sprigs so that they just feel a little bit more cohesive and blended together. And then just to infuse a little bit more spring at the thrift store, if ever I see bags of like good quality silk flowers, I will just collect them and I throw them in this huge garbage bag and I just pull from them when I need to. So I liked this really light pink color, but before I attach any of the florals, I just decided to zip tie in two places, at the top and at the bottom, so that way the wreaths would stay nice and put before I attach any of the florals. But I wanted my wreath to actually smell good. So one little trick is you can go to Trader Joe's and get a pack of dried lavender for like $5, and then I just trim it down and I add it to the grapevine section. So the dried lavender was essentially the only new piece I bought to make this wreath. So it's good to just be resourceful and use things that you already have and make different combinations, so that way you don't have to spend unnecessary money, but you can still get a really chic look on a budget. As I mentioned earlier, there are just certain pieces of home decor that are very true to that farmhouse aesthetic. So bird cages, cloches, lanterns, all of those pieces can really read farmhouse. So if that is your aesthetic, I definitely recommend investing in those pieces. But the investment oftentimes does not need to be huge or at a Kirkland's price point. It can oftentimes just be really affordable at the thrift store. Like I found this one for just $3.99. Now my sister-in-law loves a good farmhouse look, so I asked her what she does with her bird cages. She said that she'll put florals inside of them or use them as a candle holder. Kirkland's had one just displayed with some speckled Easter eggs at the bottom. I've also seen people use them as jewelry holders. So a lot of options there. Another piece of decor I really loved from Kirkland's this time around were these faux book boxes. I like these a lot because they just look really nice, really chic and simple, but they do provide you with a little bit of storage. So you could put like remotes in here, batteries in here, and I plan on doing kind of a DIY project, doing that exact same project, but this time around at the thrift store, I did find this really beautiful checker printed box. I'm pretty sure this is from the Studio McGee line at Target, and unfortunately it was broken. So I did have to just repair it a little bit. So I just took some super glue gel and some clamps, and I just clamped the pieces that were broken back together so that way it just fit nice and perfectly again, and it was only $1. Ideally, I would have loved to have found the bigger version of this box that Studio McGee carries, but because I didn't, I just stacked it on top of another thrifted book, and I think it looks really chic, and this was so affordable. When it comes to floral arrangements, I have had this floral arrangement for a while now. I thrifted it a long time ago, and every Christmas I don't put it out, and I think I just don't put it out because the berries are just falling apart. It's just not in good shape. It always just looks kind of messy. So I just decided to finally just remove the florals because I love the vase. So whenever you're looking at things, just remind yourself that you can always separate things and add different things to make it exactly like what you want. So I had thrifted these magnolia leaves a long time ago, and I recently thrifted these little white flowers. I just removed the leaves on the flowers because I didn't really care for them. So I just added the flowers again with the magnolia leaves, and I think this looks chic and timeless. I can leave this out year round now, so it's not just like a piece of temporary decor like it was with the berries, but it was so affordable. I think the reason I had held out on doing a Kirkland's video for so long was because I think of Kirkland's, I think of signs like these ones, like home, home sweet home, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's great if that's your aesthetic, but my personal aesthetic, I just like a little bit more abstract or landscape or textured art. But one thing that I think can give you a farmhouse aesthetic with not necessarily having to have these word signs on your walls are having maybe a wall clock. And I feel like wall clocks are very common farmhouse decor pieces. I found this one at the thrift store for just $4. There was just one problem. I did not have any AA batteries. So I saw this hack on TikTok. If you roll up a little ball of aluminum foil and use a AAA battery, it will actually function exactly the same. So taking some inspiration from Kirkland's, they just had a smaller wall clock placed above a little table with some florals, and I thought that that just looked really timeless and chic, and it gives me that farmhouse aesthetic in a way that makes sense for my space. And last but certainly not least are going to be our decorative trays. So when I was at Kirkland's, not only am I paying attention to the type of tray that they're using, but I'm also paying attention to how they're styling the tray. So when I'm at the thrift store, I can oftentimes find decent trays that just might need a little bit of an upcycle. So for example, I found this one for just $4, and why I loved it was it already had these really pretty leather handles. I did not like the color of the woven material, so I decided to just tape off the section that I liked so it would stay this beautiful chestnutty brown color, and I'm just going to spray paint it. I wanted this basket to kind of have more of a modern farmhouse look, so I decided to go with black. And I think when you're spray painting baskets, the number one thing I will say is you just want to keep changing the orientation of the basket when you're applying the spray paint, because baskets are one of the trickier things I would say to spray paint because there's so many nooks and crannies that it's difficult to get the nozzle correct. So you just want to keep moving the item that you're spray painting around versus moving the can of spray paint around, if that makes sense. And after the basket was completely spray painted, I just went in with a clear sealer so that that color would stay nice and put. After all of the coats of spray paint had dried, I just took it inside, and now I'm just going to remove all of the tape from the handles. Now, I actually didn't get any spray paint on the handles this time around, but if you do, just take some goof off to it and then it should just buff right out. With the tray kind of complete now, I just wanted to kind of go around Kirkland's and look for some inspiration in floral arrangements and what I could maybe dupe. So they had this vase for $39.99 with some dried baby's breath and eucalyptus. And I have this vase in my stash and I kind of liked that chestnutty color. I felt like that would kind of tie in with the handles of my tray. So I always buy baby's breath and eucalyptus. I think that if you're on a budget, these are florals to stick with because they look beautiful when they're alive, but they also dry really beautifully as well. One thing I like to do though with dried baby's breath is just add some hairspray to the tops specifically so that way they stay nice and intact. And then I just added some dried eucalyptus, and essentially this only cost me $3 instead of almost 40 bucks. And to further amplify that modern farmhouse look, I'm gonna add this little clock here adjacent to the floral arrangement. And I think that this was so budget friendly and it looks so chic and timeless. And that about wraps it up for today's video. Let me know down in the comments which project was your favorite and any other stores you would be interested in seeing this style of a video too. And if you happen to be watching the day the video goes live and you celebrate Easter, happy Easter from my family to yours. And I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye for now.